Hi, welcome back. I'm Eugene Sakai with Studio S Squared Architecture, and today I'm joined by Spencer Vieira
Hello.
and Sierra Schmidt, both of
Hi.
whom both of whom you've seen before on previous videos. Welcome to Phase 5 Construction Administration. We are in the home stretch where you are finally getting to see your project coming to life. Um, all that work that you've done with our firm, all the work that we've done with you and the city is finally paying off. Your builder is working away based on our plans. Our role during this phase is primarily to support your builder during this effort. Depending on the level of service you've opted in for, we're going to do either 3 or 4 site visits or possibly as many as 7 site visits for gold or platinum clients. And so we'll be going over the content of those site visits later with Spencer and Sierra. Um, Really, there's not a whole lot for you to do during this phase except keep an eye on the progress of construction. If you see anything that warrants our attention, please let us know. As you might remember from our contract, we do not charge for answering questions where we don't have to leave the office. So keep the questions flowing, keep us apprised of what's going on. Similarly, if your contractor is having any issues with ordering any of the fixtures or finishes that we specified on your plans, let us know about that. Um, Sierra, maybe you can touch a little bit on your approach on when a lead time maybe becomes a bit onerous, or maybe an item you've spec'd gets discontinued. How do you typically handle that from your side?
Yeah, so sometimes we'll get emails from either the contractor or the client, or a call saying, "Hey, this faucet's been discontinued or this tile's been discontinued," or like you said, the lead time is too long. And typically what we do in that case is we will reselect. We'll reselect something that's similar. Sometimes we reach out to our reps to see if they can help us find something similar. And that's essentially how we kind of solve that problem.
Yep, perfect. And there's no charge for that on our end, of course. Um, so yeah, as I mentioned, we're going to go over the cadence of the site visits. As we've discussed in our phase 4 video, we will try our best to pre-schedule these visits with your builder. Um, but it's also good to kind of keep us posted. Sometimes the builders forget uh, as to like when we should be coming out, particularly for the final, when we're all pushing towards the finish line. Let us know when they're getting close to move-in day, and we will come out and do a final punch list. We'll talk about that in more detail. After you've moved in, we would love to do a post-project assessment with you. It shouldn't take more than 45 minutes to an hour, but we'd love to walk through the house with you, hear your constructive critiques about the design of your home, hear any critiques you might have about the process in which we helped realize that design for you. And in exchange for your time and your patronage, we'll bring you a lovely housewarming gift to help to decorate your home. So really your contractor is the star of the show during phase 5. Our role is mostly a support role. Your contractor's actions are shown here in blue, and we're really going to be just kind of following along and assisting along the way to make sure the plans are being followed. The contractor will be coordinating directly with the building department for inspections. There's also going to be a series of inspections done by some of your technical professionals. The geotechnical engineer will have some site inspections. The civil engineer will come out and verify the foundation is poured in the right place and the building is not being built over the height limit. Your structural engineer will come out and do a series of framing and foundation inspections. And then last but not least, our firm is going to be doing a series of site visits as well. Starting with the architectural team, really our first visit kind of happens towards the beginning of the project during framing. As you've seen with the other flow charts that we've put together, there's a series of hot links so that if you click on these cells, you can pull up additional information. So for example, on this cell here, you can pull up what we typically do during our first site visit, which is during framing. Spencer, do you want to shed some light on what you typically look for when you go out and do a framing review?
So once the structure has been framed, we would go out there and conduct a framing inspection. Typical things we look for in terms of architectural drawings are, for instance, in bathrooms, if the wall niches are in, the showers or tubs, if the tub is recessed or a dammed shower. We also look at ceiling treatment, the framing for ceilings, if the tray ceiling or some kind of vaulted going on, to see if it essentially complies to the approved set of plans. Also, again, with skylights, same thing with skies in terms of location, framing, and those things. Also, things that are looking for are any things that raise up in terms of code compliance. For instance, if pressure treated is required next to some kind of concrete, those type of items.
Yeah, I'd say it's important. The framing really dictates the shape of the home. It dictates where things get located, and it's relatively easy to move sticks of wood around. What's one of the beauties of light frame construction? It's relatively easy to move things around before finishes start getting applied, before plumbing and electrical start going in, which is why we want to come out during framing, where we can see the house taking shape and make sure the shape of things, the location of things are per plan, basically. And so Spencer and others from our staff will come out and they'll document things that are not quite per plan, and they'll put together a written and photographic list of items for your builder to address. So on the second site visit for the architectural team, we come out a little bit later. The framing's typically been buttoned up, and now what's starting to happen is the exterior finishes are starting to go on. The builder wants to close the house up before they start working on the interior. So that means putting your roof on, putting your windows in, and then around the windows, all the finishes that go on to really create the exterior look of your home. Spencer, why don't you talk about some of the things that you look for when you are seeing the building envelope coming on, being assembled?
That depends on the inspection. Usually on framing, the exterior flashing or the waterproofing is usually up. So depending if it's stucco or some kind of siding. But in terms of other items that do come up are details such as roof trim, eave trim, those type of items where we're looking at size and location. We do get quite a few, requests for RFIs or requests for information regarding those type of items.
Right. I think sometimes our trim detailing, I'd say, gets a little bit more complex or sort of non-standard compared to maybe what builders are used to. And, they want to do things right, but a lot of times they're not quite sure how to put it together. And so, if there's any lack of clarity on our plans, please, we encourage the builders to contact us. And if you see anything that looks a little awry, please let us know. But typically we try to go out before the exterior is completely done and all the windows are trimmed out. We like to see mock-ups of trim around windows. We like to see mock-ups of stone being applied before the whole stone is run all the way through the building. So anything we can catch early, we try to. And this is sort of the purpose of this site visit. So if you've hired us for gold or platinum interior design, we're also going to do a series of site visits specifically for the interior, and those would be led by Sierra and members of her interior team. And typically they're looking at very different things than the architects do, but they definitely complement each other. Sierra, maybe take us through the first of these site visits, paint and millwork.
Yeah, so the first site visit will be after sheetrock has been done. And typically we're going to try to go through paint and millwork at the same time, since they happen around the same time during construction. So it's required that your contractor has the paint brush offs in their respective spaces ready for us when we get there. That way we can assess whether that paint selection we made in our office together looks the same on your wall in your space. Natural light can have a heavy impact on any paint selection. So it's really important to see that in person on that wall before the painter completely installs it. Additionally, millwork is another really important aspect of our site visit, because we are during the design development phase, we try to finalize millwork profiles. We try to finalize baseboards, casings. However, sometimes these require multiple pieces of casework or millwork put together to create a profile. And so this is when we find it really important to meet with the finished carpenter on site to finalize those profiles in the field. So that's another really big important aspect of interiors. So that's pretty much the first site visit there.
Yeah, I think there's similarities to the exterior site visit that the architectural team does, in that, you know, a lot of times the interiors team, just like the architecture team, they're doing details that are more custom, that are a little bit more complex, that are a little bit more deluxe and non-standard than maybe the typical millwork or finished carpenter might be accustomed to. We might not just be slapping on a 6-inch baseboard or a 4-inch crown molding like you might see in a typical home. And as Sierra said, it might be more like a 4 or 5 piece compound trim detail. And how do all those pieces go together? It's typically best to kind of look at those together with the installer, make sure he's clear, see mock-ups, make sure that everyone's on the same page.
Right, yeah.
Great. Quick question on the brush offs for paint. Do you typically recommend that a whole wall be done, or maybe just a few square feet, or in certain sunlight or certain shade, or what is your recommendation there?
My recommendation is maybe brushing off like a 2 by 2 foot section. That way we get a really good idea of the paint color, because sometimes the sheetrock can be distracting if you just swatch a little piece of it. And honestly, I'm not I don't have a heavy preference on what wall it goes on in the space, because really that paint's going to be on all surfaces. So at this point, we don't have your lighting, your artificial lighting installed. So we're really only assessing it based on natural light. So I don't have a heavy preference on which wall. It's just important that each paint color goes in the space it's going to be used in. I've been on site before where the painter did brush offs on one bathroom wall for all paints in the home. And that really doesn't give us a good idea of how natural light's playing with that paint in the bedroom, say. So every room gets a different amount of natural light, and it can really start to mess with the undertones that are showing in that paint color.
That's fabulous insight. And correct me if I'm wrong, but most higher end paint manufacturers at least offer very small cans just for this purpose, right? You don't need to buy a gallon to do a brush out.
Not at all. The paint installer or the contractor can get a small can in that actual finish as well, whether it's eggshell, satin, or flat. They can do that as well. So it's pretty easy for them to get a hold of smaller samples, so you don't have to invest the time in a color maybe that we end up switching. And it's worth saying that we bring our paint decks on site as well, just in case that paint color doesn't look quite right. We're ready to quickly reselect with the paint installer. That way we don't waste time.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
You've certainly got a system now. So let's talk about your system or your methodology for your second site visit.
Yeah, so this site visit is about tile setting. And in our CD sets, we are pretty good about documenting where we want the first tile to begin on any floor tile or wall tile. And this is important because you don't want to see pieces of tile getting cut off. It can start to look not well thought out, and can kind of start to look like an afterthought if we don't take the time to really meet about this, because
Mm-hmm.
during construction things change. Dimensions
Mm-hmm.
of rooms flex a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Cabinetry might change between design development and construction. So it's really important that we meet with the tile setter, not only to finalize, okay, this first tile is starting here, but it's also to give the tile setter an opportunity to ask any questions about tile trim, niches, shower benches. It's just good for us to meet so we can talk those things over, and the tile setter will have a full, a good path to move forward, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Sierra, you touched on something that Spencer and I discussed in our phase 3 video, which is that putting a building together, a residential building at least, is far from I mean, you don't have like micrometer level of tolerance as some of our clients might be used to in their engineering labs. And,
Yeah.
tolerances in wood frame construction can be pretty large, an inch, 2 inches in some cases.
Mhm.
And so for things like a tile layout or things like a cabinetry dimension, those things need to be looked at in the as-built condition.
Right.
The plans don't necessarily have the exact same dimensions as what will actually fit. And so that's where these site visits come in. That's where field measurements come in for things like your cabinet manufacturer. Generally we want the same sizes that are shown on our plans, but sometimes small mistakes are made. Sometimes they're cumulative, and sometimes they can lead to variances that need to be accounted for, as Sierra mentioned.
Right. Yeah. And grout can make a difference too.
Oh,
If
good
a
point.
tile setter says, I can't do a 16-inch of a grout line with this tile, we have to increase those grout lines, which then creates cutoffs on certain tiles. So it's those fine details that really make a design shine.
It's a great point. There's a lot to it. Like with a lot of things that look effortless and almost as if, they were meant to be, often take a ton of effort. All right. Well, thank you for that overview on tile. What do you do during site visit 3, Sierra?
This site visit is towards the end of construction. Depending on how your roller shades or drapery are going to be installed, it could be around the same time as paint and millwork. It really depends. But this is to finalize window treatments. And when we go through the design development phase, we study whether we're going to have recessed roller shades or recessed pockets for drapery, whether they're going to be mounted inside the window jamb or outside. So we study those things during design development, but we like to finalize these things during construction because things could have changed. And we also don't like to finalize the fabric selection for that roller shade until we're able to kind of see the paint in that room and get a better feel for how the site in general is looking. So this is an opportunity for us to meet with the window treatment manufacturer and discuss any details, how many rollers you want on your great room door, if you want them to, how you want them to operate. There's a lot of details with window treatments that, we're not the specialists in. So we like to meet with the window treatment manufacturer and discuss those items and then help finalize the fabric. So it's a pretty straightforward visit, and it'll be pretty easy since we did a lot of the work during the design development phase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with my limited experience in working with window covering or window treatment vendors on my own construction projects, it's tough to get them to commit to anything until basically the house is nearly done. They don't like to come out during framing. They don't like to come out when there's only sheetrock on. They're really used to kind of coming in at the tail end of a project and sort of seeing everything sort of fully decked out. And so I think one of the things that does need to be looked at and coordinated fairly early is whether or not you have powered or basically automated window shades that require a low voltage or a medium voltage electrical connection. But we'll certainly take care of that coordination for you up front.
Yeah, definitely.
Great. So Towards the very end of the project, as I mentioned, we actually like to come back with the full team, be it just the architecture team or the architecture and the interior team, to do a final punch list before move-in day. Typically, this is when the project is just about done. Everything's been installed. Contractors frantically getting the project ready for your occupancy, sometimes for a final inspection. Spencer and Sierra, what things do you normally see during a punch list walk? What are you looking for also? Spencer, why don't you lead off?
So on the exterior, we're looking primarily at trim, the transition between trim and different materials, paint, if there's any touch-ups have to be done. So we're just doing a general walkthrough through around the home to notice any little imperfections, things of that nature, and give a list to the contractor on what we have seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially for interiors, it's the same thing. When we walk through the interior, we're looking for areas of touch-up, any paint or anything that kind of needs to be repaired. We are also looking at the finer details to make sure that those were actually carried through. When we started our design vision together with the client, for instance, on a recent project that we did a punch walk for, we saw that the door hinges were not matching the door hardware finish, which is specified, but for some reason that didn't happen. So that's kind of those littler items that maybe some people wouldn't normally see. We're making sure we're executed properly. We also make sure that light fixtures are hung at the proper heights, that maybe they don't need to be adjusted. A lot of the time in our plans, we call out for general height for certain fixtures, like a dining room fixture, a great room fixture, but depending on the scale of it, it might need to be adjusted slightly. So we also take note of that as well.
There was that recent project, we won't name the client, but where one of your staff members actually saw an opportunity to improve the lighting arrangement by actually switching 2 light fixtures in different locations. I thought that was quite remarkable.
Yeah. We originally specified a certain fixture for the stairwell and then another fixture for the dining area. And when she was on site, she saw the scale of them in reality and thought, oh man, these would look really great if they were swapped. So they were switched. And in the end, it was a huge improvement to the design. So yeah, those things are important.
So with that last example that Sierra just described being a possible exception, where we might have a little bit of an added labor charge to move one light fixture to a different location and swap places. Generally, the things that we identified during a final punch list are not going to have a cost impact to you. These are things that actually the contractor generally wants to address because he's just as vested in turning over a very well finished, really beautiful looking home to you, just as we are. So we're going to go through both the architecture and the interiors, as the case may be, with a really fine-tooth comb. Typically, the team brings out blue painter's tape and sort of photographs the tape on the area that needs addressing. And then, as in the other phases, you'll get a written and photographic list of items for your builder to address. And oftentimes we will recommend that that list of items be fully addressed before you issue them final payment.
Right.
So really that concludes the whole process. So you've been through a lot with our firm, you've been through a lot with the city, you've been through a lot with your builder, and now is the time to enjoy the fruits of all of that effort. We congratulate you on getting through this process. We want you to enjoy your home, think fondly of our firm, refer your friends, family, and coworkers to us so we can make them equally happy with their projects. And please keep us in mind if anything comes up, if any questions arise. We are here to help, and we view all of our clients as lifelong friends and partners of our firm. So on behalf of all of us here, I want to thank Spencer and Sierra for their time and their collective knowledge on this particular video. And thank you especially for your patronage and choosing our firm. We're very happy that you did, and looking forward to seeing you in your new home.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.